and this one is the third part. The first part represents HTTP request method. The second part represents request URI, and the third part represents HTTP version. Okay. Any question about start line of the HTTP request? Any question? Okay. Let's move now to start line. It's okay. Let's move to the header fields. What's the meaning of header fields in the HTTP request? So header field has a structure like this: field name, after that field value. Field name is not case sensitive, and field value may continue on multiple lines by starting continuation lines with white space. And field values may contain MIME types. So MIME is the abbreviation of multipurpose Internet Mail Extension. I repeat, MIME is the abbreviation of multipurpose Internet Mail Extension. Also, we can find quality values. Quality values are used to express the preference of the MIME types. And also we can find wildcard characters. So the convention of specifying content type on a message. In HTTP typically used to specify content type of the body of the response. This is the MIME content type syntax. We write top level type, after that subtype. This is an example, text HTML. So text here represent a top level type. HTML represent a subtype. We can write text XML. Text XML. So text, that means top level type, XML subtype. In this example, image represent top level type. JPEG represent subtype. Just a moment, please. This is an example of header field with quality values. Accept is our header field, and text XML, text, HTML, etc. This is header value. So in red is the value of the header, and in blue is the header. What's the meaning of accept? So here we discuss together the header field in the HTTP request. That means when we send an HTTP request, we send the method, we send the version of the HTTP, we send also the URI, and we send many headers. Okay, this is an example of header. When we ask our server to prepare a response, we can specify that we accept an XML response and an HTML response and a plain response and an image response, GIF or JPEG. Okay? Do you understand? Yes or no? Good. So in this example, when we write accept text XML text HTML Q equal 0.9, that means the preference of XML as a response and HTML as a response is 0.9. So quality value applies to all preceding items. So 0.9 will be applied to text HTML and text XML. That means our preference is for text XML and text HTML. This is for example, also for the image, our preference is low, is only 0.2. And for this example, key values, how we decide it. It depends of our request. For example, if we want that the response will be only images, in this case we write accept image, for example GIF Q equals 0.9. If we want that our the response will be just text, we write only accept text XML. And here we use star or wildcards, not use of wildcards, to specify quality 0.9 for any type. That means any type. Any type. Okay? Yes. So 0.1 for any type. There are many header fields that can be used in the HTTP request. So the previous example is about accept. Accept, that means MIME types of acceptable documents. We can also specify the host, the user agent, that means type of browser sending the request, the connection, the content type, the content length, the refer, that means the URL of document containing link that supplied URL for this HTTP request. So if you click a hyperlink and your browser sends a refer header, the website receiving the request can learn what URL you were browsing when you click at the link. So there are some many examples of header fields. So status line, it's okay. Header field, okay. After that, blank line. After that, optional body. This is sorry. So this is HTTP request. So let's go to HTTP request. So the structure of an HTTP request is start line, header line, blank line, and after that optional body. Now we will move to HTTP response. Now we will discuss the HTTP response. So the structure of the response is status line, header field, blank line, and optional body. This is an example. And also for the response, there are 3 parts in the first line. The first part is the version of the HTTP. In our case is 1.1. It's clear. The second part is the status code. And our example is 200. And after that, reason phrase intended for human use. So in the HTTP response, the first line contains 3 parts separated by space: the HTTP version, the status code, and after that, reason phrase. Any question? Any question about HTTP response, status line? Okay. So for the status line, there are 3-digit number. We talk about 200 here. So 3-digit number, like 200, for example. So we can find 200, we can find 201, or 2, or 4, for example, etc. So the first digit is the class of the status code. If 2, first digit 2, that means success. So if the status code is 100, yes, 1, that means informational. If 300, that means redirection. 400, like 404, yes, is not found. So that means client error, yes. And for 500, 505 is server error. So the other two digits provide additional information. It's clear? Any questions? Okay. So, like the HTTP request, the HTTP response has also a header fields. Okay. So the common header fields of an HTTP response are connection, content type, content length, date, location, last modified, etc. So there are many HTTP response header fields. Any question about HTTP response? So if we make a comparison between HTTP request and HTTP response, what are the common parts in HTTP request and in HTTP response? No. This is the structure of an HTTP response, okay? And also we studied the structure of an HTTP request. So what are the common parts? That means the parts that can be found in the HTTP request and in the HTTP response. Not status, yeah. Yes. So we can find optional body in the HTTP request and the HTTP response. We can find blank line in the HTTP request and in the HTTP response, and also we can find header fields. Also header fields. So in the HTTP request, this is the structure of an HTTP request. There is an optional body, the blank line, and header fields. Okay? But in the HTTP request, we begin with a start line, and in the HTTP response, here we have not start line, but status. Good. It's clear the structure of an HTTP request and the structure of an HTTP response. Any question? Okay. Let's move now to the client caching. Have you an idea about client caching? We will save a copy, yes? Not data about user. Yes. We will store requested resources After that, these resources will be used another time by other requests. Yes. For example, if we have an icon appearing multiple times in a web page, in this case we can store this icon. So why we store this icon? Why we use client caching? To make it faster, yes, good. So for example, if an image or an icon on a web page, a copy of the image obtained from the server will be cached in the client's file system. Then, if another page at the same site uses the same image, in this case, the image can be retrieved from the client's file system, rather than sending another request to the server and waiting for a response. Yes. So we will increase the performance, yes. But the question is, so there is a disadvantage of client caching. What is the disadvantage? Not updated, yes. It might go out, yes, of synchronization. Yes, Mr. Faisal, what is your question? What's the meaning of ISA or TMG? Yes. Yes. So type of proxy. This is a scenario when we use the client caching. So the browser sends an HTTP request for an image, and the web server responds the browser with an HTTP response containing the image. After that, the browser will store this image in the file systems. If the browser needs that image again, so it can request another time the server, and the server send a response, or yes, or get the image from the cache. So the advantage of client caching is faster than an HTTP request response. In this case, we have less network traffic and less load on server. The disadvantage of client caching is the cached copy of resource may be invalid. That means inconsistent with remote version. Any question about client caching? Okay, let's move now to character sets. So every document is represented by a string of integer values, and the mapping from code points to characters is defined by a character set. Have you an idea about character sets? For example, UTF-8 or or ISO 88591. Yes. So we can find the character set in some header fields like accept character set or content type. For example, in the content type, we can write content type text HTML. That means the type is an HTML code, and after that we specify the character set that is UTF-8. Yes, ASCII, yes. So typical USPs produce ASCII documents. So for ASCII character set can be used for such document, but it is not recommended. So when we talk about UTF-8 and ISO 8859-1, there are supersets of ASCII and provide international compatibility. So UTF-8 can represent all ASCII characters using a single byte each, and ISO 8859-1 is 1 byte code. Any question? Mr. Faisal? Yes. So UTF-8 is used in the web. To represent characters. Let's move now to web client. So web client is a software that accesses web server by sending an HTTP request message and processing the resulting HTTP response. Okay, so web client is a software that accesses web server by sending an HTTP request. Can you give me an example of web client? Browser, yes, Internet Explorer is the web client. But also mobile phones can be considered as web clients. And robots also can be considered as web clients. Okay? Yes. So for web browser, the primary tasks are convert web addresses to HTTP requests, communicate with web server, via the protocol HTTP and render documents returned by a server. And web server receive HTTP request via TCP and map host header to specify virtual host, and after that map request URI to specific resource associated with the virtual host, map type of resource and to appropriate MIME type, and use to set content type header in HTTP response, and log information about the request and response. So for Tomcat, the configuration can be broken in two areas: external communication and internal processing. So we will talk about Tomcat when we investigate Java servlets. So we can make administration of Tomcat web server by writing HTTP localhost 8080. So localhost is the address of the machine that contains Tomcat. In our case, localhost specified that is local. We can write 127.0.0.1, and 8080 is the port of the communication. And here is the IP address. Yes. Good. Any questions? Okay, thank you for your attention, and see you next week inshallah in chapter 2 HTML. We will investigate HTML, hypertext markup language. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.